Morning, everyone. Do you have your tea? Now, I've got mine in a teacup today. Young Benjamin was making his own drink and he noticed that all the teacups were missing, so we had to use one of these. So I put it back into the front of the cupboard, so I thought I would have my drink out of a teacup. Now, what we normally do is we have a little chat. I go through some things. Maybe we've had some questions. We've had a lot of questions this week, actually, which has been really nice. So I'm going to answer some of them on air. And if you have just come for the sewing, if you go off, go make yourself a drink. Maybe not a cup of tea, as I was following a sewing group of Lisa Lambs the other day, and apparently lots of people don't like tea, don't even like the smell of tea. So if you'd like to go and get yourself a drink while we chat, and then come back in a couple of minutes. So just move that safely out of the way. Now, one of the questions, it is National Go Outside Day today, and apparently it happens every first Saturday of the month, and this is the first Saturday of the month. So, can you take your sewing machine outside? I know a lot of people have done. I have seen that. Good morning, Susan. Oh, now I have got, let me just see if I can see everyone. I've got the iPad here, so I can see your comments, so I am not, but it doesn't actually, I can't see where we've gone live. Oh, it's catching up, it's catching up. Oh, there I am. I need to make sure that the volume is down. There we go. I can see myself and I need to swipe left to reveal the comments. There you go. Morning, Becky. Morning, Susan. Morning, Karen. Just catching up now. Hello, everyone. Oh, I've got the volume up. Hold on a second, because otherwise it's going to interfere. Oh, I don't know where the volume is on this one. Hang on. There we go. The sound has gone. Now, we've had a few questions. Now, I'm going to ask the question for somebody, and then hopefully you can all, in the comments, you can answer. What is the best sewing machine? What is the best thread for your sewing machine? Now, today I've got Aurifil in mine. It's just because it's one of the colours. It happens to be, I didn't have any white, and this is a pale pink, and I'm sewing with white fabrics today. So that's why I've got Aurifil. It's sewn beautifully. It did actually, when I was sewing my first flower, it did snap. Now, I don't know if it's because I don't have matching thread in the bottom. That's another question. Do you match your top thread with your bottom thread? Usually I use Gutermann. So all of these dark green ones here that you can see on my display, these are Gutermanns, and I don't think they are recycled. They are eco-friendly, and I can't remember why. I can't remember the bump on that, but these are eco-friendly ones, and these are the ones I usually sew with. So I've got Gutermann in the bottom, in the bobbin, and I've got Aurifil in the top, and I don't know if that's why it's snapped. So maybe you can all comment and answer the questions for everyone. What do you use, and what have you found good? What have you found bad? A lot of the American sewing groups that I am on have said that they don't like the moon thread. Now, I don't know if that's Moon's, is it Moon's coat moon? I can't remember. If you can put your comments down below, and then hopefully you can answer that question for somebody. Okay, I can see a few people are adding their preferences, so thank you. Now, when you are sewing outside, what sort of thread do you use then? Do you use the same thread? Do you use the same needle? Now, what I wanted to do today, we are going to do something that you can take outside with for sewing. But let me show you where the inspiration came from. So this is what we're making today. We're going to making some flowers. Now these, you can hand sew these completely, or what you can do is you can start them off and then you can finish hand sewing them when you're in the garden if you want to. So the way I came to the decision of making this this tutorial is, this is one of my pin cushions. Now this is my Nan's cup, my late Nan's cup. So I always keep it in the sewing room because I don't want to use it, because I don't want it to break. And I wanted to make it useful, so I made a very small pin cushion to go in the top. And when I was at the shop today, this is what I took with me. You will all have seen, possibly. So I've got my quite a big pin cushion, and I wanted a smaller one. Now, what I've decided to do is sew very tiny. You will have seen. These are my octopus suckers, okay? And these are very tiny bubble quilts. They're in a line, so I guess you wouldn't call it a quilt. But I'm making lots of them, and I needed so many pins. I need to take all my pins with me because I think I'm making 48. So every single one needed 4 pins in it, sometimes 5. And I was making them all up so that I could sew them when I came back home. And I couldn't fit all of my pins into one. So what I wanted to do was have this as the pin cushion with everything in. And then when I was sewing a few, I wanted to pop them into something smaller. So I thought we could make a pin cushion together today. Now, I just wanted to show you this. This is one of our old makes. So this is a bigger bubble pin cushion. Bubble cushion, can you see? So what you do is you make little creases in squares and then you fill them up with stuffing, and then they become, got so many different sizes, look. And then they get smaller and smaller. And this is, so these are 3 inches by 3 inches square. Okay, and then this is an even tinier one. So this one is 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches, and I think that's probably as small as I would go. But yes, bubble quilts are one of my favourite things to make. So there's the inspiration for today's make. I'm just going to move everything out of the way. So let's have a look. The other thing I was asked, which ties in with this, is what can I make that's very quick that would be popular and I can sell for charity? Now, lots of people are raising money at the moment. Okay, so they wanted something that they could make very, very quickly and sell. Now, we've got Mother's Day coming up. You've got Easter. Flowers are very relevant for spring. So I'm thinking you can make these quickly. You can sell them as pin cushions. You can put them onto bags. See, I've put them on here. So this is classed, this is just a flower now. It's not going to be used as a pin cushion. So this is my idea of something you can make quickly. And if you wanted to sell, you're all very welcome to sell this pattern. So let's have a look at we've got a bigger one here. Move that one out of the way. This was just a 4, okay? And what you do is you can thread, this is the hand sewing part. You can thread around here. You need to use some embroidery floss if you haven't got any. And what it does, it gives you a little bump effect. Let's take this one off. I didn't attach it, so there we go. So what you can do is make them curve. So this one is just a circle, and then what I've done is I've tied these in, and it kind of makes a bump, but doesn't make a bump as big as this one, doesn't make it actually look like a flower. So the idea today is to cut a flower, and what we're going to do to give you something additional to the tutorial, so we're not just sewing something. Some of you may have made many of these already. I wanted to show you again how to do the ladder stitch. Okay, what people tend to do is they sew up these around the outside, and that's okay, but what can happen over time is the stuffing can come out. So if you can sew it on the bottom, the way that we're going to do it today, what you have now, I've done this wrong deliberately so you can see. Have a look at that. So can you see how bad my sewing is? Now the idea was I wanted it to stand out. What we will be doing is we'll be trying to hide our stitches under here, and you won't be able to see them, whereas if you had put them in the outside, you would definitely be able to see them. So we're going to sew using this method. So let's get our fabrics ready. And one more thing, if those of you have come back with your tea ready to watch, I'm just going to take a last sip. I couldn't find my 6.5 by 12 ruler, so I went and bought another one, but this one is 4.5 by 14. So you can get many different sizes, but this one is a so easy one. And let me show you, it actually has marks in here so that you can, just put it on the other camera so you can see. It has marks in here, holes, where you can actually draw different lines. So these are available from Hobbycraft. Hobbycraft doesn't pay me to say that. This is just what I bought myself. Actually, I bought this from Dunelm, but you can get them from Hobbycraft, and it matches my other one. So I didn't realise that So Easy did the ones with the holes in. So if you wanted a new ruler, you want to go and have a look. And these are very reasonably priced. Okay, now we're going to get our fabrics ready. So I've already cut mine. You need 3 fabrics. There we go. We need 3 fabrics. Now we need a 4 by 4 inch piece. Now that I'm doing white, let me just show you the other one. My watch is just telling me it's turning off. So this one is a purple one, okay, and I just wanted it to look like a flower. I did have the idea that what you could do is you could have green on the back, and that might give you the impression of the leaves. But this one is a white one because I want it to be a daisy. So you need a 4 by 4 inch square, and then you need a 4.5 inch by 4 inches, and then 4.5 inches by 4 inches. So when this goes on the top, these match, but this one will overhang. So the way that we make our flower, and I've got my little iron here, and I've got 2 pins. Can you see those? Let's change them to green because it makes it a little bit easier for you to see. So here is Morning Violet. You can only see Violet's name. Can't see the other comments on that one, but welcome everyone. So there is my 4 by 4 inches, and I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm going to iron. The one I made, when I made the purple one, I didn't do these I didn't iron it as I was folding, and it definitely makes it easier for when you're sewing. So we're going to fold again in half. Now you can stop there if you want to, and you could cut your circle. So what you do is you cut your petal from here, and then you would have your 4, but I think it's a bit nicer to fold again. So these are my crease lines, and these are my the outside edges, okay? So I'm going to hold it there for a little while because I really want these creases to mark, because these are where you're going to be sewing. There we go. Pressing that right down. And then you can see it's harder with white fabric. There you go. So I've got my seams are here, okay, where I've folded, and then these are my raw edges. And I'm going to take, now I'm hoping these scissors are sharp enough. I need to sharpen my large ones because when I cut just now, it didn't work. So what we're going to do is just imagine that this is your petal. So you're going to go from where your edge is here, and you're just going to cut a curve. But make sure you actually go down a little bit, otherwise you won't have a curve on that point, because you want a curve on every point. Okay, so I'm going to start where these ends are here. I'm hoping that's clear for everyone. I'm going to start down just a little bit, and then I'm just going to curve. Now it's up to you how much of a curve you do. When you make more than one of these, you'll now that's not very even. You'll decide yourself. So I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to try and make it. You can draw this in, obviously. So if I turn it over that way, I'll try and match it. But you've got lots and lots of fabric here, so make sure you are using sharp scissors. That's a bit more even. Let's put it against my. There you go. There's more of a curve there. Okay. I can see your message, Violet. Yes. So what I was asked was, could I bring something? Could I make something that people could make to sell, and send the money to charities? Or so that's the idea behind today's make. So thank you for your comment, Violet. So I'm going to open this one out, and now we have a flower. And then how do you get your perfect seam for when you want to leave your turning gap? So this is our 4 by 4.5, and here's my second 4 by 4.5. Now I'm going to lay that on the top, bring in my flower, and I'm matching up those seams there. Okay, now think about, this is going to be, so you will have a seam allowance along here. So just bring it down 1/4 inch, put in your pin. This wool pressing mat has been amazing for me. I really have, I've used it every single day, and not just for pressing on it, for actually sticking pins in, for using it for holding fabrics. So I'm going to turn it around so you can see. So there is my center. So you don't want your turning gap closer to the center, so you need to come up another 1/4 inch. So about there. Now I've stuck my pins in and turn this over, and then I'm going to bring in my marking tool, which is just a pencil, and then I'm going to draw a mark there and a mark there, and now that is our turning gap. Okay, take my pins back out and put them in. I have so many pin cushions. Let's move that one, we don't need that one anymore. Now what we want to do is sew these two together. So there is my my marks, and I want that to be on the outside. So I'm going to lay those two together, and I shall bring in the sewing machine. And what we're going to do, we're going to sew from the top, and then we'll back stitch. Make sure you back stitch here because there will be a lot of tension on there, and then we'll start again and go back, and we'll do a back stitch on this one. So what I've done with my machine is I have got it on a shorter stitch length. I will line it all up because it may have changed because I was sewing the flower just now. So there is my mark. So I want to start about here. Now I'm going to move my needle over because you can see it's not in where my little arrow is here. My needle is not in the right place. Now I'm not going to tell you what it is because on your machine it may be slightly different. So now that is lined up perfectly. I'm changing my stitch length to a 1.8 because once you have filled this up, and you have to overfill these, once it's overfilled you want to make sure that no filling is coming out of there. So needle down, I'm going to sew forwards all the way up to that first mark. Now it's very important that you have a strong stitch here, that's why I've gone all the way up, and then I'm going to go all the way back with the back stitch and go off the page. Off the page, I'm going to go off the fabric, and I've cut, and then what I need to do is pull my fabric out because with my thread cutter, what it does is it holds this piece of thread down, and sometimes I don't want that because if I'm pushing this forward it won't go any further forward. So that's just a little hiccup with our Excellence 580. So needle down. Now my mark is just a little bit further back, but I want to make sure I've got enough stitches. I don't just want one back stitch. So needle down and then sew slowly back to where that mark is. One more, and then I'm going to sew forward. So can you see I've over sewn on that bit because when we fill that up it really is going to have a lot of tension on it. So back stitch, cut my thread, and let's move the machine back. There we go. Move that out of the way. And there we have, hold that up. You can see where our gap is. That is not where I haven't sewn between there. And now we're going to bring in our pressing mat again. Open this out. Now you can use this method for so many different things. There we go. There is our hole. Okay. You can use this, as I said, I used it when I made, let's bring him in. When I made the whale, this is how I did this. But can you see I didn't do a small enough stitch here and it's already starting to come undone. So note to self, small stitches. So I'm just going to press that. And then we're going to bring in our flower. Now it's up to you which side you want because we're doing right sides together. Mine is obviously white so you can't really see. So I think that side is brighter. So I'm going to leave that as what will be the outside, and then I'm going to bring in my flower and lay that on the top. And as you can imagine, once we've sewn all the way around, that will be our turning gap on the inside. So let's bring in our pins. Use my little flower here. So I will be taking these out now. I'm going to put these so that they are pointing that way because then when I'm sewing around it's much easier to take them out. Now I think the white and the green looks really nice together, and something else I've noticed, if I bring this in, can you see how nice that looks together? I think definitely a darker colour. I know this is just my my pokey tool, but that looks so nice together. So I'm going to definitely going to make a smaller leaf for my daisy. Just keep pinning all the way around. There we go. I hope everyone has added what thread they use, and I've answered that question. I can't remember who the question came from, so apologies if it's you. And you're bringing the machine. It is personal choice, obviously, and it is also whatever you can get, what's available. But as I said, I'm using oil fill today, and it's sewing really nicely. So we've laid our fabrics back under our machine, and when I sewed this the first time, I'll show you how I lined it up. Can you see it's harder with my white fabric? So there is my top fabric, and what I did is I lined up with the outside of my foot, and I found it was much more, it wasn't as smooth. So what I'm going to do, can you see this mark here where my thread goes through? I'm going to line up with that one instead, and I just found the second time it was much easier. So there, it might be hard to see, but that is now lined up with the curve of this petal. So remember, we're on a 1.8 stitch length, and then I need to move my needle over because I want a 1/4 inch stitch. There we go, about there. And maybe back a bit more. Let's put that down and see. Yes, a little bit more. So I'm not going to tell you what mine is, because your machine will be different. There we go. So as you can see, just watch this point here, and then as you go round, just turning that a tiny bit. Now I would recommend only doing a few stitches before you turn if you want a smooth petal. And then can you see, here is where I did my ironing marks, which is why I went over and over it, because what you want to do is go down into your ironed mark there, one more, there we go, and then you want to go back up, and that's what helps give you that petal. So just a couple of stitches, and then moving that pin. Now what I'm missing is my pin cushion that goes on here. That's why I've got so many. They all have a different job. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this one. My daughter does some hand stitching, so I may pop this in the post. It isn't going to weigh very much, and it won't take a lot of postage. So something like this as a surprise in the post is quite a nice thing, I think. I got used to, during the lockdown, to sending people little things, little surprises in the post. I remember I sent some, what are they called, where you make the cake in a mug. I sent a couple of packets of those to people so they could open it up and make themselves a little cake, which I thought was quite sweet. But sending little things in the post that people don't know is coming, honestly, will make their day. So sending a little flower, especially to somebody who does hand sewing, which I know there are a few of us here that do hand sewing. We've had a few knitters and crocheters putting comments on as well, which is nice. Everything is welcome here. Don't think you've just got to sew with a sewing machine. Oh, I think the postman is here. The dog has announced his arrival. There we go. So you're just going to go all the way around. Now I will say this does start to hurt your feet after your ankle after a while, because you'll keep pushing your foot pedal back and forth. But luckily, it isn't a long sew. Nearly done. It was a quick make today, and I've not finished it obviously, but it won't take you very long to make one of these, which was the whole point of being able to make them for charity and sell them on. Or even, I know some people are posting these things, so like I said, very quick make. And a very pretty make, depending on what fabrics you use. But if you want to make a daisy, you can use up all your sort of white that you possibly wouldn't use for another fabric. If anyone has bought fabric panels, this is what is on the side of a fabric panel. So this would have possibly not been used for anything else. So there you can see, going all the way around. So let's move the machine out of the way. There we go. So let me just put my glasses back on. There. So I've just sewn all the way around, and you can still see my crease mark. Now what you can do is you can take a very sharp pair of scissors, you can snip into these bits here, and then cut all the way around. But what I'm going to use, I'm going to bring in Betsy. And Betsy is our, we think possibly 60-year-old pair of pinking shears. And I'm just going to pink all the way around. I'm going to go really slowly. Hopefully, I'm not going to go into those stitches. You need to be really careful if you're doing this. It's harder for me to see holding it for the camera angle. There we go. And what you can do is once you've finished, is you can go back and go into those petal marks, because that will make all the difference when you've turned it the right way out. You hear how sharp she is. I had a conversation with a lady. She came into the shop and asked if we sold pinking shears, and she was shocked to hear how old my pair were and that I hadn't sharpened them. So there you go. And then let's just move that out of the way. And then what you can do is just snip into here. Now these are not my new sharps. I did buy a new pair, but they are in my bag from when I went out. There we go. So I've just snipped all the way around. And let's go and have a look at our turning gap. So there's our turning gap here. So pop your finger in and push all the way out. There we go. It's quite fiddly, this. And what you will need is some sort of pointed tool to make your petals as smooth as possible. There we go. Now you will see whether you have whether you've done that smooth enough. My only worry when I did use the white fabric is, am I going to see the seam allowance? But because this is quite thick fabric, it has worked out really well. If you're using a duvet or a bed sheet, you might find it's a little bit thinner. This is obviously a heavier thread count. So just check if you are going to be sewing with a white fabric to make a daisy. Make sure that it is thick enough, because as you can see, you can just about see it, but once all the filling goes in, it does disappear. Now I don't think I was as smooth as I could have been on that one. And we've got a bit of a lump at the top. Just take your time. Oh, you'll have more time than I have, but just pushing this all the way out. There we go. Now you need to bring in, I'm not sure what the director's going to do now because he doesn't like me using this stuff. He's got a bit of a nervous itch when I'm using things like this or cotton wool, but just toy filling. Now make sure when you're filling this up that you're pushing it all the way in to your petal, okay, and then move on to the next one. Don't put it in too big a movement, because it will just sort of bulk out the center and not your petals. This is going to take me a little while. Let's push that back in. Now I'm just going to turn this so I can see your comments. There we go. I can see you all answering different questions. White cotton on white fabric. Really can't see it that well, as Susan says. It's lovely that you're all answering everybody's questions. Thank you, everyone. Once I take my glasses off, that's it. I just cannot see. So making sure you're going all the way out. Now, when you think you've filled it enough, now with this one, let's bring this one in. This one isn't stuffed enough. It needs to have more in, because what happens is it starts to crease around here. So when I did the white daisy one, I put much more in. So once you think you've finished, put in more. Okay, just put in more. Just unfortunately, it takes a long while. Has anybody got the automatic captions on? because sometimes they do make me chuckle because they say things that they write things that I didn't say. It does make me laugh. So can you see how much that went in, and we still need more? There we go. So the next part, what we need is embroidery floss or skeins, depending on what you call them. And I really would say to use that, unless you're going to use an extra strong thread. I would definitely use, there we go, I would definitely use an embroidery skein, because you do not want this to snap. Now I have had it, even the embroideries threads, these ones, I have had these snap today. So I'm going to use all 6 of them. So hopefully it's not going to snap. So there we go. Can you see it's completely stuffed? And then what happens when you put that, push your finger in, hopefully it gives you almost the marks of a flower. And then we need to choose the right button. There are my buttons there. And once we've put the button in, there we go. Once we've put the button in, so let's see, quite a big one, I think, just to make it look like a daisy. And as I said, where did I put my pokey tool? That is a beautiful colour for a leaf, I think, to go against it. So now the way that you choose how much thread you need, because you don't want to get to the end and then not have enough thread. So lay your thread over like this, and then just start to wrap as you would, like that. Okay, you're just going all the way around, and then do another bit just for luck, because you do not want this to end before you're ready, because then you will have to pull it all out and start again. Now I just need a tiny bit of thread, because I do need to close this gap up. Now I'm not going to close it up. It's not going to be the best bit of sewing I've ever done, because obviously I'm doing it against the clock. But I do need to sew that up, because otherwise it will affect my, move my glasses out of the way. I had to use a needle threader this morning, which I haven't had to use for a long time. So I'm just going to put a tiny little knot in there. And what you will do is you will do a ladder stitch, because you want this to be as invisible as possible. So what you do is you pop a tiny, I'm going to lift up just a tiny bit of your fabric here, okay, and then you go over to the other side, and you just need to take up the tiniest bit. I can't actually see that, and the smallest amount you can do will make your stitches almost invisible. And then you go into the other side. Oh, that's come undone. Now we do have a ladder stitch tutorial, and I will add a clip to it, but I'm just going to do this really quickly because we want to move on to the embroidery bit. So this is how not to do it, because A, you will see your stitches, and B, your stuffing will fall out. You can see there that it's not going to hold it in. You could be doing all of this hand stitching whilst you are sat in the garden. There we go. Now I've got my 6 here. Now what you can do, you wet the ends. I know you can buy something that will keep the ends softened for you, and I can't remember what it's called. Somebody mentioned it the other day. So let's see if I can get all 6 of these through here. I don't think I'm going to be able to. As I said, I had to use a needle threader earlier. But what you can use is what they call a darning needle, which is what we use when we do cross stitch. There we go. Oh, I think I got 5 in. Right, we're going to sew with 5, everyone. That means I've got to take this one down. You just pull that one out. There we go. So we're just going to use 5 now. But if you use a darning needle, just remember they don't have a sharp point on. So when you're trying to push this through, you might regret not using a sharper needle. So, ready? So, we're going to go in at the back first. So there is my gap. And then there is my center. Now pull this slowly and let your thread untangle, because what can happen is you'll just get a big knot at the back and it won't, it's not going to help you. So, and then go over between one of your petals and then go back into the back to the front. There we go. Can you see? There is my knot starting to happen. Just take your time, let it dangle down, and just keep checking where that's going to be. The amount of times I've been cross stitching and I've just ended up with a knotted horrible mess. See, it's just twisting. Now what you can do to stop that from happening is hold your thread like this and just let your thread and your needle untangle itself. It's always good to do that every once in a while when you're cross stitching. So what you then do is pull that tight, pop your finger in the center, and then do your next petal. Back through, not through your finger. Can you see, because I hung that down, that is now not knotting up, because it's already untangled itself. Now pull as tight as you feel you want to. Background, all the time holding it close in the center. And again, try not to go through your finger. Now, there were a few people, Sue was saying that she does hand sewing. Now, do you use a, forgotten what it's called, the thing that you put on your thumb? Do you use one? I have got one, but what I found when I was sewing these this morning is I didn't actually need one on my thumb. A thimble just come to me. I didn't need one on my thumb. I needed one on my fingers, and I know you can buy leather ones. Hopefully there are some faux leather ones available, and I was wondering if anybody has used them and if they could recommend them, because I would like to do some more hand sewing. But when you're pushing these through, it isn't just your thumb, it is your other fingers as well, and the thimble didn't really help my fingers. So it's just easier doing this up here because you can really pull it tight. It's easier for me because I can see. There we go. So a last pull, okay, and then back through to the back. And then you needed this extra thread ready to put your button on. Now, as I said, I want to put a big yellow one in the middle so it does look like a daisy. But back through there. Now, people think, I thought that it was just an easy way to put there was just one sort of easy way to put a button on, and you just kept going back and forth. But actually you are supposed to make a shank. Now, what a shank is, you would push this through there. That's brought my button into the center. Now this isn't how I'm going to do it because it's not what I want to do. But what you do, you see I've just passed that around the back. When you do a button, what you're supposed to do is wrap your thread around here and it makes a little shank, but you don't want that for this because you want this to be as tight as possible. So I'm going to push that through another hole. Now this is where my 3 threads snapped. So what I did is I doubled over the 3 threads and re-knotted it and ended up with 6. Now this time we've got 5, so I'm hoping this is going to be strong enough. Ready? So we're going to pull and then push your button down because you want this to be as taut as possible because that's how it helps the flower. So that's why a bigger button helps as well. When I did a smaller button, it didn't help. So holding that tight. This is where my fingers were hurting, so I did think I would use some of those other thimbles. So Just making sure it's in the center. Can you see it's now making that flower shape? Pushing it down again and going back through. And then just do this quite a few times because it's all additional security. There we go. So if you made yours, if you wanted to make lots of them, if you made them up until this point, and then you could, as I said, take them into the garden or do this bit while you're watching the TV. Just prep them all and then finish them off. It's definitely helping having more threads. So the 5 is working, but I would recommend using the 6. There we go. Nearly finished. That's one of the quickest makes that we've done. Pushing that through. There we go. And our daisy is finished. Now what you can do is just keep doing that back and forth to make sure that it's not going to come undone, because it's quite hard to tie. And there you go. So 5, even 5 broke. Let me just take that thread off there. There we go. Now let's bring in our bag. So instead of winding yarn around for buttons, sew through right tight at the front and over a matchstick at the... Oh, I'm going to have a look at that. Thank you, Sue. Yeah, Sue was the one that said that she did hand sewing. So there you can see our beautiful daisy. Now I'm just going to lie that I lie that down while I rethread because I want to add this. So that other thread that I didn't use, I'm just going to pop it on here. And nope. Anybody else, I mean, I know some of you are the same age as me. Get frustrated that you can no longer thread your own needle. There we go. So I'm just going to put a knot in the back. And then what I did is I positioned this. There we go. I wanted it to, one to tuck under the other. So that leaf is going, that petal is going under that petal. Okay, and then from the back, now you would do this on your pouch before you put your lining in. See, I can't feel where that is. Oh look, Violet says that she loves making the bubbles too. I am pretty obsessed with them. Right, let's come through this side. Okay, make it a little bit easier. And then through here, and all I'm doing is another level of security for your button is I'm going through the button, back through the back, hoping that this doesn't knot up, and then putting that back through where I started. This is what I need my thimble for, look. Try not to stab myself. There we go. A magnifying glass. Do you know my nan had a magnifying glass sat next to her when she used to sew in the evenings? It's funny, isn't it? You need somebody else to recommend something to you that just, you know, can seem really obvious. I hadn't even thought about that. Yes, I will be looking for a magnifying glass. Right, I'm just going to do a knot at the back because these aren't staying on here. I just wanted something to put them onto. As I said, these are going to go into the post to surprise somebody I love with a pretty little flower. There you go. And then I'm going to pop this one. And I know it's a different colour to the other green. Let me just see. I can position that. There we go. I think it looks quite, yeah, there. I think it looks quite nice having that different green in there. Or possibly you would want it, let's put it down, because you'd want it in the opposite place to the purple one. So there you go, pretty flowers. You can make them very quickly. As you've seen, I made it from start to finish, and we had lots of talking at the beginning. So was that 30 minutes? So very quick make that I am happy for you to sell these for charity, for whatever you want to do. It's not my own pattern. I mean, so many people have made these. Maybe putting the bit in the back is a with Dawn Taylor little hack there. But I'm more than happy for you to go and sell these and raise money if you can. Or pop them in the post and make somebody smile. I would love to have one of these coming through the post. And they don't weigh very much, so I don't think the post would cost a lot. So there you go. Thank you for joining us, everyone. So we're finishing a little bit early today, so you can go off and make your drink. Now I'm imagining that mine is cold. Yes, it is cold. So I'm going to go off and do some sewing in the garden. Enjoy your garden or the outside if you do go outside today. And we will see you on Monday for another tutorial at 7 p.m. Bye.